Okay, for tonight's subject, the Armenian Orphans and the Art of Survival, there is a very large portion of Armenian history that's connected to the Armenian carpet weaving tradition, which has been under the radar for many, many reasons. Specifically, the carpets woven by Armenian orphans was kept suppressed because of political reasons. When we decided we're going to be talking about the Armenian orphan rugs and the orphanages, at the beginning we were ready to talk about all orphanages, not only one or two. Carpets were woven in Armenian orphanages since 1886. The Hamidian massacres, orphans of Agin wove silk carpets, orphans of Urfa wove carpets, orphans of Aintab wove carpets, and then post-genocide deportations in many countries surrounding the Armenian refugees and the refugee camps. Wherever there were orphanages, they were always involved in producing carpets. But then it was going to be too long. It might take several hours, so we brought it down to concentrate on a couple of rugs which are here. And then as I started researching on the Ghazir rug, the smaller one, we discovered there was much more information involved. Again, I had to reduce it to only for the Ghazir Orphanage, because Ghazir Orphanage was one of the major carpet producing orphanages. And the story behind this rug and the Ghazir Orphanage is so important that we have to postpone, with permission of Mr. Barsumian, if we can later in future give other talks to present the other orphanages and the carpets that were woven there. So tonight's talk is going to be primarily about the Ghazir rug. I'm going to go, the first portion of our presentation, it's going to be almost like a fast forward until we get to this point. September 3, 1915, Morgenthau, Henry Morgenthau was the ambassador of the United States in Turkey. He witnesses the deportations of Armenians. He gets alarmed and he sends this wire to Washington, D.C., stating the entire population were disappearing from their homelands. And following this, he keeps sending other telegrams notifying the American government the situation of the Armenian people. Within 2 weeks, the United States government officials get a response. They get organized, and within 3 weeks, they already sent $60,000 to aid the orphans and the refugees so they could get to a safer place. And then immediately they form an association called ACASR, American Committee for the Armenian and Syrian Relief. They start working and start fundraising immediately. The fundraising was organized nationwide, from East Coast to West Coast, any means they could to start raising funds. During that time, there was a movie being made by Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was aware of the atrocities, and he was very much touched by the stories of the orphanages and the orphans. He gets busy and makes this movie called The Kid. This movie was inspired by the orphans, and it helped to raise funds. During that time, this movie fetched over several $1 million, which was the highest in silent movie scores. The Kid, being those of you who don't know who the Kid is, that his name is Jackie Coogan. Jackie Coogan is known as Uncle Fester in Addams Family. Jackie Coogan goes coast to coast, sponsored by Nestle Condensed Milk Company, because Nestle also was sending bundles of condensed milk to orphanages. And they sponsored Jackie Coogan to go coast to coast because he was already very famous, and raise the funds. Jackie Coogan appeared in many posters, in many fundraise promoting events to explain and educate the people of what was happening in Near East and in Turkey. This map that was made by Near East Relief marks the 3 major areas where the Armenian refugees were settled and where the Near East Relief was operating. On the east side, everybody from the west, 1921, when the Lenin Atatürk agreement was handed the Western Armenia to Turkey, they were also refugees and orphans. So all those were moved towards Echmiadzin, towards Armenia, and then eventually to Gyumri. Gyumri's orphanage at that time was housing over 15,000 orphans, and it was considered the world's largest orphanage. In fact, the city of Gyumri at that time was called Alexandropol, was named City of Orphans. So in 3 major areas, Cyprus, Palestine, Egypt, and then Syria. Lebanon was part of the Syria until 1947. So all that area was called the Greater Syria. Orphans and refugees were using any means they could to go to a safer place. And the survival itself became a journey. And crossing the Syrian desert was in fact a treacherous trip. Many of the children had eye infection, but finally they made it to Aleppo and eventually to Ghazir, using any means they could. Here is a close-up picture of the refugees and the orphans crossing the desert. So finally, fast forward again, they made it to Ghazir. There there was a building, it was a monastery, it wasn't being used, they converted into an orphanage. The Ghazir Orphanage housed about 1,600 orphans. The boys were separated. The boys went into Jibail, bird's nest, Terchinot's Point, and the girls were in Ghazir. This whole operation was conducted by a Swiss missionary who was a nurse. His name was Jacob Kunzler. Jacob Kunzler and his wife, they were called by the orphans Mama Kunzler and Papa Kunzler. They were worried because Nearest Relief had a principle. Nearest Relief was supposed to have the girls leave the orphanage at the age 16. So they were worried. They said, what will happen to those orphan girls? During that time, they were doing a matchmaking as much as they can with orphan boys which came to that age and orphan girls and have them get married and start a family. But on the side, they also thought that if the girls went out of the orphanage, they will be facing poverty and maybe domestic service. So they thought that since these girls are weavers, they could start producing carpets, and finally they could give them those certificates, and with that certificate they could go and start working in any place weaving carpets. To do that, he fetched Ohannes Tashjian. Ohannes Tashjian was from Urfa, already a master weaver, and had an experience. Ohannes Tashjian was also deported from Turkey, and he was at that time in Lebanon. So they come together, they said, we're going to set up a workshop for these girls to weave the carpets. And to start, as a startup, they needed a fund. They needed about $1,000. They asked Nearest Relief to allocate $1,000 so they could buy the lumber and build the looms and buy the immediate beginning materials to start weaving. Nearest Relief couldn't allocate more than $400. With that $400, they built only 2 looms. On those 2 looms, after weaving several carpets, they sold these carpets immediately. They purchased more lumber, and eventually it grew. It grew into a factory that within several years, from 1923 to 1930, Ghazir Orphanage produced over 3,240 carpets. Most of those carpets were sent to United States to be sold in Nearest Relief boutiques, so the money can go back and reinvest in producing more carpets or for the well-being of the orphans. So actually they earned their money, their living with their handiwork. These girls really appreciated what Nearest Relief did. They didn't just take and left. They acknowledged their appreciation. So in order to show their appreciation to the American people, they often formed these messages with their bodies, thousands of girls, thousands of orphans coming together to send photos like this one to America to show their gratitude, their appreciation to the American people. In here, in this picture, you see the the Russian military base in Gyumri, Alexandropol at that time, that was turned into the orphanage. And similar to these messages, they also did others, such as the Golden Rule. The term Golden Rule was coined by President Calvin Coolidge. What he did was, the Golden Rule is do upon others what you expect others to do unto you. It's a biblical term. So that term also he addressed the entire American people, said, every Sunday, please observe the Golden Rule. And instead of having your lavish meals, the Sunday barbecues and lavish meals, have just a small portion, eat what the orphans are eating at that day, and the funds they're going to spend on that big lavish meal, send it to the orphans. And the American people did that. And orphans did appreciate it. So from one message, the girls thought they had to go into work and materialize their appreciation with a beautiful rug. So they went on work and started working on a 12 feet by almost 18 foot huge carpet. The center part of the carpet is the sunburst. It's a wish, the Armenian thinking, it's a wish for bright sun to you. But the design of this carpet was classic from Isfahan. It's a Persian design. At that time, they were weaving any pattern that was in demand. So Persian carpets were in demand. They had a good name, so they would weave Persian patterns. So in this picture, before, when they wove the carpet, actually I should mention that there are 400 girls worked on this carpet for 3 years. The carpet, if you can do your arithmetic, you can figure out how long it takes. For an average girl to weave a carpet, she can tie about 2,500 to 3,000 knots per day. The carpet has about 180 hand-tied knots in each square inch. 1 square foot is about 144 square inches. 12 by 18 times 144 times 180. How many millions of knots are tied in this carpet? So, 2 girls accompanied the carpet to bring it to United States. It takes about 1.5 months, 2 months for the carpet to arrive to America. On 1925, December 25th, on the Christmas day, the 2 girls present the carpet to President Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge, admiringly on this carpet, states this rug has a place of honor in the White House, where it will be a daily symbol of goodwill on earth. Until 1929, Calvin Coolidge stays in the office, so does the carpet. And when his predecessor came and he had to move, he takes the carpet from White House to his house, to his home. For the next several years, the carpet goes to 3 different mansions that Calvin Coolidge lived in. He kept moving. After he passed away, his son, takes the carpet, says, this carpet belongs to the American people. I'm not going to inherit it myself. It belongs to American people and has to go back to White House. The White House takes it, puts it in their basement until Dr. Martin Deranian starts showing interest about this rug, because Dr. Deranian's mother was also an orphan. And one of the girls that came with the carpet to present it to President Calvin Coolidge was very close to his mother. And he called her name was Vartuhi, he called her Aunt Vartuhi. Aunt Vartuhi told the story to Dr. Martin Deranian. As she was getting old, she wanted to see the carpet at least one time again. Dr. Deranian addresses to White House, if it's possible, this is the story, and my aunt wants to see the carpet as she's getting old. Few senators get involved, and finally, during Ronald Reagan, the carpet, they bring it out, and Dr. Deranian, with the senator, with Aunt Vartuhi, they go and they visit the carpet. And the carpet goes back to the storage. Until 2013. Actually much earlier, Dr. Deranian, in an auction, finds a carpet that has an inscription, which is right here, the blue small one. In the inscription, it says that woven by Ghazir Orphanage. And it was made to give one of the patrons, one of the major donors, and the girls actually did wove some of those small ones for individual patrons that made a big contribution. So somehow this was ended in an auction house and caught the eye of Dr. Deranian, and he purchased it at that time. Having that rug and the story, Dr. Deranian wanted to at least write a book. So in 2013, he published this book about the Ghazir Orphanage, very briefly, and the carpet that made it to the White House. He was, since 1983, member of the Armenian Rug Society. He consulted us, and then the book was ready to be published. It was published, and he actually wanted to go nationwide from state to state, major cities, to present the book and to lecture about the carpet, the Ghazir Orphanage carpet, and of course with him he was accompanied by this carpet, which went to almost every major city in the United States, traveling and advocating what the girls did and the story of the orphan rug. During the same time, Bared Maronian was working on a documentary movie called Orphans of Genocide. He also hears about Dr. Deranian and wanted to do a segment on Dr. Deranian and the orphan rug, because it's very relevant. During that time, he wanted to do the interview. Dr. Deranian was here in Los Angeles presenting his books and the Ghazir Orphanage. Of course, we were there at that time Dr. Georg Nazarian was also member of the Armenian Rock Society. We all went to support Dr. Deranian and, of course, be part of the presentation. Eventually, at that time, Dr. Deranian came to me and confided in me saying, I'm getting old. I don't have any inheritance. Nobody's going to inherit this thing. I'm worried what's going to happen to this carpet. He said, you are active in the community. You are in the business. You are in Armenian Rock Society. Please, if you can find a museum to house this carpet with this story being next to it. I said, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to find a good home for this carpet so that will be available and the story will be accompanied with the carpet so the public will be aware. At that time, Orphan of the Genocide was already out with Dr. Deranian in it and going all over the United States for premiering. Eventually, it went to Armenia. In Yerevan, the movie was being shown along with archival photos of the carpets and all other orphanages. At the opening day, the American ambassador to Armenia was right there present at the movie. After the movie, he asks, he says, what happened to this carpet, to this orphan carpet that was donated to Coolidge? At that time, the vice president of Armenian Rock Society happened to be right there, who was Levon Derbedrosyan. By the way, this is the Orphans of Genocide. The video is still available on Amazon. You can rent it, you can buy it. It's still available. It's circulating. And Levon Derbedrosyan says, this is what we are trying to do. The Armenian Rock Society is trying to fetch the rug at least for a week if we can display it, because the centennial is approaching, 2015. Our aim was on 2015, have this rug in visitor center or any museum in Washington, D.C. that will be willing to display it. The ambassador at that time said, of course, this is an American history as much as Armenian history. I'm going to do my best. Let's work on it. So there was a three-way communication. Los Angeles, Yerevan, Washington. Back and forth, back and forth. I'm not going to bore you with all the time. Eventually, what happened, Smithsonian Institute agreed to display it for 1 week. Because Washington, the White House says we cannot display it. We said we can find a venue that is suitable and trustworthy that you can display it. So if you can find a place, fine. So we found, Smithsonian agreed for 1 week, provided we provide the expenses of transportation, the insurance that was going to cost about $48,000. We didn't have that money. But we said, yes, we will pay, we will cover all the expenses, not knowing how we're going to raise it, but we didn't think, we said yes. As soon as we said yes, the White House, within 2 days, came back with an answer, said, sorry, we cannot have it for 1 week, maybe 1 day, if you agree, with the same expense. We said, okay, we agree. At that time, we already realized that there was something happening there politically, and Was it a bluff they were calling us if we're going to back up, or in fact it's going to happen? So we said, yes, we agree. Within 2 days, they came back, they said, sorry, we cannot have it one day, especially overnight. It's going to be only for 8 hours. And only for certain media, only for a press conference, not open to public. We had an immediate meeting. We said, now it's clear what's happening. We said, yes, we agree to that. Let's have it.
And this is 2013.
2013. By that time, well, it went on for about year negotiation. 2014, finally we said yes again, and then after 3-4 days, answer came, sorry, we cannot have it. It's not going to happen. Somehow this story leaked to Washington Post. Washington Post, okay, wrote an article here. Washington Post called me, called Levon Derbedrosyan, called several people in Armenian Rock Society, had a telephone interview. We said we don't know why it's being refused. We didn't reveal our suspicion. Okay, we said we don't know why, but this is a story, and we briefly explained the importance of the story of this carpet to American people. Why is it being under the radar and being silenced? Finally, Washington Post, this huge front page article, which just went viral. Over 300 media outlets all over the world echoed this article, including BBC. BBC sent a reporter to have an interview with me and about all this. The BBC article went into 4 different languages, including a Turkish, Arabic, French, German. So the entire media was really questioning why is it, what's the reason this carpet is not coming out. And of course the Armenian ANCA got involved, the churches got involved, and 3 major senators, Republican Representative Adam Schiff, Ed Murkey, and David Balado, they started a campaign to collect signatures from as many congressmen and senators as possible. Finally, there were 31 congressmen and senators, representatives signed a petition. By now, Obama is on the president. So they sent this petition to Obama saying, look, our constituents and American people want to see this rug that is part of the American history. Finally, within a week, Washington Post, Armenian orphan rug remains in White House storage as unseen as genocide is neglected. However, after I'm sorry, this is a wrong text, this is a wrong slide, but there was another headline just like this one, announcing that the Armenian orphan rug, Ghazir orphan rug, will go on display in Washington White House's visitor center on November. So it did. On that day, we were invited by the Congress at a congressional press conference at the opening day to give a talk about the carpet, about its history. So Dr. Deranian addressed the media, many congressmen, senators addressed the media, and then they invited me, of course, to give the history about the carpet and the American people's generosity and what they did and so on. So the carpet went for 1 week without costing Armenian Rock Society a penny. So people from all over the United States visited, they took pictures, media, of course, was all over the place, and it was a success. I guess it wasn't anybody from our generation that made this possible. I think it was the spirit and the willpower of those orphans and the resiliency of the orphans and the willpower that brought this to surface. So the orphans were never silenced. They still speak until during the centennial of the Armenian Genocide. Yeah, it was very large, it was rolled. And on the lower corner, right here, you will see, later I will show you, during the opening day, we had many photo shoots. Many government officials were there, including former ambassador to the Armenia, John Marshall Evans. By the way, this gentleman was the first congressman and government official in Armenia that recognized the Armenian genocide, and a week after his recognition, he was passed back. They pulled him back because of his statement. He was there. We shared many stories. Wonderful man. So the carpet, orphan rug of Ghazir, presented to President Calvin Coolidge, surfaced again, and with it brought all the story of the orphans, of the deportations, etc. The back of the carpet, in this picture you could see, it says, in golden rule gratitude to President Calvin Coolidge. Similar tags were made for all 3,280 carpets, but in different names. Woven in Ghazir Orphanage, and every carpet was numbered with handwritten signatures. Later, after the presentation, if you come, you flip the corner of that, you'll see the same similar tag handwritten in the back of this carpet. Now, this carpet became a woven record, but in a higher level. But similar carpets also became a record. From a woven record to a woven dedication. What made the Calvin Coolidge rug to be surfaced was actually that Coolidge rug's sister rug, we call this one. This one is her little sister, woven by the same girls. This carpet, when Dr. Deranian asked me to find a good home for it, it was dedicated and to Mr. D.W. Williams, again, in appreciation of, it's a gesture of appreciation from Near East Relief Orphanage, Ghazir, Syria. So now every single carpet that is woven in that orphanage has a story behind it. So do these carpets. Now, we were fortunate enough to unravel the stories of these by diligent work and by interviews, personal interviews with Dr. Deranian. From Dr. Deranian, what I've heard, I conveyed it to, I've heard that at that time, 2014, that Lark acquired this building. It was a warehouse. And Andy told me that they are planning to make this dwelling into an auditorium and a museum. I said, Andy, this is a great news, and I have a proposition. We have a situation like this, and I think this carpet that Deranian has it should end up in a prominent place, in an establishment, cultural establishment where it deserves. It should be housed and should be available to public, and time to time people can come and visit and see and read the story behind it. Andy agreed. He said, let me think about it, and we have to do something. We are facing many difficulties, but this is something it's worth investing in. Eventually, he acquired it. He acquired it and kept it with him. After several years, Andy decides, by the way, Andy Torosian was born in Armenia, raised in Armenia until the age of 7. They migrated here. There was no contact with his relatives in Armenia. Finally, few years ago, he decides to go with his family to Armenia to visit his relatives. While he was there, the discussion goes around orphanages and orphan drugs. And his relative says, you know, Andy, your grandmother, Mamu, they called her Mamu, she was raised in that orphanage and she was a carpet weaver. Andy did not know this. And she pulls all the archival photos and finds Lusaper. That was her grandmother's name, Lusaper. Lusaper's photo in orphanage of Ghazir with her dear friend. Eventually, Lusaper gets graduated from carpet weaving, and she meets her future husband, and she gets married. Her husband, Zaruk, and Lusaper in 1940s, they migrate to Armenia. They become a big family. Andy recalls, while he was growing up, Lusaper would babysit him. And Lusaper would sing to him, tell stories. And in this picture, we see Andy Torosian as a baby with Lusaper, with a carpet woven by Lusaper as a cover on the divan, and the pillows. There is a long story. Andy recalls while he was a small boy, he would do fights with the pillows, throws it to his sister, etc. And Lusaper, which they called Mamu, would give her the pillow and say, go throw it on your grandpa Zaruk. And he recalled, those are his memories of Mamu, grandmother. So eventually, when Andy returns from Armenia, calls me, he says, I have to see you. You don't believe what just happened. I said, what? He said, this is all meant to be. It was a call. I had to get this carpet. Who knows? Maybe or maybe not, but it's the same for me. This carpet, actually, it was meant to end up in my hands and eventually in Lark Musical Society's museum and the cultural center. I'm not sure Andy is today here. I think Andy John, thank you. This all was meant to be. I'll be glad to take your questions, if you have any.
Now, is this the sister rug of the Ghazir rug?
Yes. Now you're looking at the center one is the Ghazir sister rug. And hopefully I have the Aintab orphan rug, which has a similar story, that was again acquired by Andy Torosian. Hopefully there will be other opportunities. We'll tell the stories of the Aintab orphan rug. Many of the founders of Lark Musical Society is Aintabsi. By the way, while I was doing the research, I discovered a copy of a telegram sent to the American Embassy. There are certain names, a list of names that is requesting laissez-passer, temporary passports, to travel to United States for certain individuals. Among them, there were 3 individuals that names were Barsumian. So we don't know. It takes a lot of work and research. We'll find out if Vacha Barsumian already has relatives here that came in 1920s. Okay, I'd be happy to take any questions.
So where is the rug now? Did it go back to the basement?
The carpet is back to the basement.
Shame.
Well, what they do actually in that visitor center, they have so many gifts. Seasonally they change. Maybe after a while we start working again and we'll surface it again. But what happened at that time was greatly affected in the political arena. That one carpet, I think, it made a major impact. Major impact to have at least the recognition, right? Among other things. So,
Give it back to Armenians.
no, it belongs to the American people. It should stay in White House, and once in a while it should be surfaced to remind the people of American people's generosity and their contribution to the survival of Armenian refugees and the orphans. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Now, many of you, I have few requests. Many of you, I've noticed in previous presentations, are taking pictures, active on the social media. Please feel free to do so. Take pictures, share the pictures in the photo, and don't forget to tag Armenian Carpets, Orphan Carpets, Lark Musical Society. After all, this purpose of this events is to spread the word. Spread the word to as much as we can. As much as we can. Through the results of these events, thanks to the decision of the Lark Musical Society, we are spreading the words, not only of the orphans, but in general Armenian culture. We presented the history of Armenian weaving tradition, the symbolism. I'm glad that many artists were inspired by the patterns of Armenian carpets, and they started to produce new art forms inspired by Armenian carpet patterns. Among them, I think, Ruzana Berberian, Lucine Sakian, which she will be having soon, I think for June 4th, she's having an exhibit inspired by Armenian carpet patterns. Approach her, talk to her, and just spread the word. Be active on the social media. It's a good tool. I know there are many boring things on them, but use it. Use to spread the word. For over 600 years, Armenians never had a government. It was the people who kept the culture going. In diaspora, in all over the world, our culture was the pillar of our existence. Governments come and go. Government administrations are like the bubbles on the wave that the ocean brings. They come and go, they come and go. But the water, the sand, is the culture, remains there. Just keep it strong, and you are the soldiers. Don't expect from any Ministry of Culture or any government officials do something. Each one of you is an ambassador of your nation's heritage, cultural heritage. You are an ambassador. Spread it as much as you can. After you view these carpets, there will be some coffee and cookies, please. And next week, don't forget, next week, same day, Wednesday, 7:30 p.m., come here, Dr. Nazarian. Georg Nazarian is a walking encyclopedia. I never met any historian that I could ask any questions and he has the answer by time, by date, by everything. Enjoy him. There is a wealth of knowledge right here under this roof, and spread it. Come and learn, and learn who you are, what's your heritage, what's your backbone. Spread it.